And 3, 2, 1. Good morning, fellow joggers, and welcome to your Wednesday edition of the Morning Jog. My name is Matt Cohan, and I am here with the ever-ravishing Francis Ellis and Robbie Berger. Hello,
Top of the morning, boys.
Hey, guys. Hi.
Good morning. All right, friends. We're going to get
great.
right into it today, and we're going to kick off this show with something both of you are very nuanced in. Dry spells, fellas. Stephen A. Smith suggested yesterday that NBA players are going to be so sexually frustrated in Orlando, they're going to bust out of the bubble to bust a nut.
Do we really think that the recreational activities, what these guys are accustomed to, are going to be compromised for 3 months? I mean, somebody's got to say it. Somebody's got to say it. You really think that people are going to be without their wives or their woman? Okay? I mean, the guys that are married without their wives, the guys that ain't married without their women. You really think they honoring a bubble for 3 months and are going to deprive? Somebody got to tell the truth.
As we know, every team, player, and coach and staffer will be isolated at Walt Disney Resort in Orlando. Games will be played at the location, and players will live there and stay isolated from the rest of the population until the decided stretch of games is completed. Francis, does Mr. A have a point here?
Maybe. Yeah, probably. But I also think that the league should allow for conjugal visits. And I hate to use that term since I know it's like what they call it in prison, but we could figure out some version of that where, like, if you did a 14-day quarantine of a wife or a girlfriend and made sure that she was like, you could test her, right? They could test that and then bring her in to Epcot Center or whatever. They go on a date with, LeBron and then things happen. Boom, 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 biggity boom bomb, bippity boopity. And then they go on their way. I don't see why that's so hard, right? Am I wrong? Am I crazy?
It's not. It's not. I think that there's actually a thing where they're allowed to have their wives or significant other. So, I mean, I agree with Stephen A. Smith. I don't think it's such a hot take from him. He built it up like it was a hot take. But, look, I was working at the Four Seasons, in Los Angeles, California, as we all know. We would get so many NBA teams that would come in and stay with us. And not just NBA. It's any sport, any athlete. They would have a field day. So, yeah, I mean, I totally agree with Stephen A. Smith. But the buildup that he had on the show for it, like he was about to drop a total hot take. I mean, everybody agrees. Just say it, on in some regard.
When you say it was insane, what were they? Were they bringing in rando, or were they?
For example, we had 2 buildings. There would be guys who would be just not even think they would put their wife in one building and then have the mistress in another. And then it got hard at times because sometimes they come to the front desk with their wife and you have to navigate it in a certain way. And there's been times where people have almost slipped because you see them literally in the matter of these buildings are right next to each other. And it wasn't just the NBA. It was every pro sport we had. But NBA was pretty ruthless. I'll say that. It was pretty ruthless.
Wow.
That's insane, dude.
Yeah, a couple stories for you that I wish I could share on the Morning Jog.
My God, dude.
You could write a book, Robbie. You could write a book and spill all the tea, I bet.
Yeah.
Well, I think that if the NBA is worried about the player safety, like, think about James Harden. If he hasn't entered like a strip club in 72 hours, his like throat starts to close up and he starts to break out in hives. Like, they should do it like service dogs are allowed into restaurants. They should be legally obligated to let Harden into like the spearmint rhino for like.
They gotta let some of these guys loose regardless.
Yeah. I mean, J.R. Smith just signed with the Lakers. You think he's not going to be giving pipe, dude? He's going to be getting the itch, dude.
That's what he does.
Yeah. All right, fellas. Speaking of blowing it out of a small hole, Ian Poulter became golf's everyday guy after letting out what can only be described as an excavation of his colon after Greg Chalmers hit his tee shot this weekend at the Travelers Championship. Poulter ripped his anal salute and appeared to murder a duck in the process. We'll play it for you here.
Get that. Right under there.
tries to be more solid than that?
The fart made such a waves on social media that TMZ Sports interviewed Poulter to confirm that it was in fact him that did the deed. He said, "I guess it's one way to protect social distancing. I will have to look around next time. I will check my surrounding area with caution." He added, then when the interviewer says, "So you won't be a repeat offender then?" Poulter replied, "Oh, I for sure will be a repeat offender."
Yeah.
Poulter really bolstered his brand here, literally and figuratively. No, Robbie?
Yeah. I mean, look, has there ever been a time where you didn't love a fart? I mean, farts are undefeated. Farts have always been funny. They always will be. And the way that Poulter approached the fart, and rather than try and hide it and come into this internet meme or sensation, whatever it is, you just address it head on. And that's what he did. He made it funny. That's the way to go about a fart.
Totally agree. Yeah, you can't. You go from like wanting to make fun of a guy to just tipping your cap.
Totally.
If he tries to play it off or he starts blushing, that's when the wolves come. The wolves come in and they ruin you. But if you're like, yeah, that was me. Everyone's like, oh, shit, I wish I had that confidence. The only way this would have been funnier is if he had done it in his opponent's backswing.
Yeah.
Because then it turns into like, oh, you're with your buddies and these guys are doing it on tour. Now, I understand that could actually cause some friction with your playing partner or whatever with your grouping. But, boy, cutting a fart in someone's backswing, and if they actually fuck up their drive as a result, that is going to send me cackling every single
Francis,
time.
tomorrow you should just rip a fart during Matt's intro.
I was going to ask you golf guys that. Is there like what kind of penalty is there for that type of behavior? I guess it hasn't been.
That's the beauty of it. Absolutely none, and there shouldn't be. You're out in the open. You got to rip a fart. You ripped a fart, national TV or not. Ian Poulter set the standard for the way to handle a fart.
Was he far back in the tournament? Was he like out of it, or what was like?
Well, the funny thing, he was actually playing pretty good. I think he made the cut. He was playing okay. He wasn't in it. He didn't have a shot at winning it, but he had a chance for a pretty good purse.
Yeah. Good for him. I enjoyed that thoroughly, and I will be watching it and listening to it again. While we're on the topic of disgusting pigs, fellas, scientists have identified a new strain of flu carried by pigs in China that they say has the potential to become a pandemic. The new strain descended from the type of flu known as the swine flu that emerged in 2009, causing the first global flu pandemic in 40 years. As with swine flu, the new strain has been identified as having all the essential hallmarks of a candidate pandemic virus. The scientists who studied flu viruses in pig populations between 2011 and 2018 noted around that 10% of swine industry workers say they tested in China and have already been exposed to the virus, which they described as, quote, a concern. That rate increased among younger workers aged 18 to 35, quote, indicating that the virus has acquired increased human infectivity. Are we all going to die here, Francis?
Look, there was a time during early coronavirus where I had the mindset of, well, in a way, we're lucky that this is not more lethal. You know what I mean? That it was fortunate that it most people who got it, especially young people, weren't really affected. But I don't know how many like pandemic meteors have we dodged over the last 100 years? You know what I mean? You hear about the swine flu, and I remember how worked up we got about that. And I guess the reason we avoided that was that it mutated into some form that wasn't that bad. How many of these have we dodged? Because you hear about stories like this a lot. You hear there's the potential for this thing to get really bad, whatever. Is it only a matter of time until we have the next disease pandemic that spreads that wipes out 100 million, 200 million people, where we're talking like you're literally staying inside for months?
Right.
I don't know. It's scary as hell. You watch that movie Contagion and you're like, how close are we to that? So I never know whether to take a headline like this, a news story like this, super seriously and be like, phew, we dodged another asteroid,
Right.
or if this is just kind of capitalizing on the sensationalism of the moment. And that's the problem, is that like I'm dubious about it and I don't want to be. And I think that causes problems. So
yeah, there were too many of those murder hornet headlines that like they were supposed to be kill us all by now, and like nobody has heard of one since. Robbie,
You know what? You nailed it, Maddie, in the sense of that. That's what I was going to say. You get these murder hornet stories. You get all these different stories. And back to what Francis said, you get all these stories now. You wonder, how did we dodge all these pandemics before? You think pandemics, I hate to say it, but would come a lot more often. But at the same time, too, you see a story like this. Does anybody have the energy right now to click on it and we can't handle another pandemic or even the thought of, we got too much shit on our plate to worry
we
about.
just got off on the golf course. We're on the beach, and now going into that same would be.
Do we gotta do that? We just can't handle it right now. We got enough shit to worry about.
You know, it does open up a fantasy of mine, though, which is that
brace yourself here, folks.
Like, one thing I've always thought is that maybe I have a very rare genetic immunity to the next virulent strain of pandemic, whatever it is, and that, you know, I could easily, like, once that hits, I could retire from being a comedian and just donate sperm at like $50,000 a pop to extremely wealthy, you know, women who wanted their children inoculated from the moment that they were conceived. And like, I could be that guy, you know what I mean? I could repopulate with a new species of kids that are
Look,
totally
Francis, at this point in 2020, I don't put it by you. I mean, who knows? Who knows? You can't count anything out, and that's the bottom line. You really can't.
Would it be really weird for me to say that one of the reasons I push myself on the Peloton is because I believe this? Like, I'm always thinking that I need to stay in shape to protect my genetic immunity that might happen.
I think what's more weird is you're using a Peloton as an analogy for a pandemic. So I think when you think about that, that may be weird, and then you could just look into deeper thoughts, which again you can't question.
I think what I'm saying is, like, I stay in tip-top shape and I treat my body well because I see it as a means to making money once I can start getting paid $50,000 to donate sperm. That's my thought, and I know it's unlikely, but
I mean, hey, whatever motivates you. It's like every time I listen to Rogan nowadays, he's always dropping. He's like, get zinc pills. I'm on the verge of, like, he's like, stay hydrated, get zinc pills, and this thing stands no chance.
He's an awesome.
You have no idea what you're talking about, but I'm gonna follow you into war. You have no idea.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Well, just a thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
A million little Francis is running around, dude. That's Hitler's dream.
Oh, geez. That's a lot of Pelotons.
All right, fellas, that is your Wednesday edition of the Morning Jog. Thank you for participating, and we will see you same time, same place tomorrow.
Awesome.
We love you. Bye-bye.
I got to drop a shit so bad.
Hey.